And now let's hear it for our next teller, David Bannister Jr. David, come on up.
Welcome. Hi there. I'm short.
No shame in that game. No shame. I think that'll work.
Yeah.
Does that feel good?
It feels good.
Okay.
All right. So how many here of you know anything about Nancy Reagan? That's totally where you thought the story was going, right? What about the Just Say No program? All right, so my story is about my experience with the Just Say No program. So I grew up with my stepdad and my mom, and my stepdad was a real hard ass. He was that type of guy, you know, it was his way or the highway, and you know, everything was black or white. You know, there was no gray area. It was only right or wrong. So growing up in that kind of environment kind of, you know, affects a kid, right? So growing up doing all these chores and things, he would make me, we'd have to do them in a very specific way. You know, you do your homework and then you do your chores and then you might get to go, you know, play video games. That was a big thing for me. But my stepdad was just always ran a really tight ship. And so I developed this kind of perfectionist complex to where I knew exactly what I needed to do to get things done. And it's, you know, it created the fine young man I am. I've always followed the rules. I always listened, you know, to my parents. I did everything I was told. I was that really nerdy good kid. And so coming into the 6th grade, my parents opted me into this program called Just Say No. And have you all heard of Just Say No program? So it was kind of, it was a Nancy Reagan initiative to help kids learn to say no to drugs. And so I get enrolled in this so that my parents, you know, can have all this free time while I'm stuck at school learning about not to do drugs. And I was in this program for 2 years. 2 years. So this brings me up to the 8th grade, right? So I'm in the 8th grade. And we're going through this activity. There's this checklist, and it's called Signs Your Friend Might Be Doing Pot. Right? Yeah, awesome. Yeah. So I start going through this checklist, right? And it's like, mood swings. Okay, I know people have mood swings. Check. Got it. All right. Laziness and lethargy. I know people like that. Check. I'm going through this checklist. I'm cruising through it. You know, I've done these things a million times. But someone's sticking in the back of my mind, and I'm like, oh, huh. And then I get to the last one is compulsive eating. So I'm like, oh, this is starting to worry me now. So I finish this checklist, and I come with this terrible realization. My stepdad is a pothead. So I'm like, oh my God, this is 14-year-old me going, my stepdad's a pothead? That guy? You know, he's so hard on me. So I go home, and I'm sitting at home waiting for my stepdad to get home from work. I'm in the chair. He comes in. It's dark. I click on the lamp. Like, we need to talk. He comes in, sits down, looks at the coffee table, sees the checklist, looks back up at me, and I'm just like staring at him like, are you smoking marijuana? He looks back down, he looks back up, he nods, he doesn't even say yes, he just nods his head. And I just go off. I let go. He's yelled at me a bunch in my life. This is my turn. You're doing what? How could you? You're a damn hypocrite. I'm at this stupid program and you're at home smoking weed. You're a bad example. You're a bad parent. So you can imagine, this is 14-year-old me telling this to my stepdad. And he just kind of looks at me. You know, you kind of see a little bit of the shame and embarrassment well up in his eyes a little bit. He stands up. He goes, "You're right. I'm sorry. I won't do it anymore." And that was the last time we ever talked about marijuana in our house, ever. Last month, the week before Christmas, my stepdad passed away from a massive heart attack. He was only 50 years old. And it's been a struggle for me and my family dealing with that, because he was a hard ass, but he was, still, my dad in my life. And so while me and my brother and my mom were going through the process of getting ready for the funeral, talking memories, we talked about this story. It came up, and I asked my mom, and I was like, "Hey, Mom, did he ever talk about that one time when I accused him of, smoking marijuana?" And he said yes. And she laughed, and she's like, "Well, actually, it was a really big deal for my stepdad when I accused him of that." And she said he actually never smoked weed again until I moved out at 18. Thank you.